It's a good bounce back win for us today. I thought we started the game with the right tone on the defensive end. And so that was
Everyone thought the drama was finally over when Team USA brought home the gold medal from Paris, but the real story was happening behind closed doors. And now the final domino has officially fallen. After months of intense scrutiny, backlash, and accusations of sabotage, the head coach of Team USA, Reeve, is officially out. While the corporate press release might try to spin this as a standard contract expiration or a mutual decision to part ways, the timing and the context tell a much darker, more complex narrative about what happens when the establishment goes to war against the most popular athlete on the planet. It looks like the decision to leave Caitlin Clark at home didn't just cost the team millions of views and millions of dollars in potential revenue. It might have ultimately cost the coach her job. To understand why this resignation is such a bombshell, we have to go back to the moment that started the firestorm. It all began with a roster list that shocked the entire sporting world. When the 2024 Olympic team was announced, one name was conspicuously missing: Caitlin Clark. This wasn't just a surprising omission to millions of fans. It felt like a deliberate statement. Clark was shattering viewership records, selling out arenas, and single-handedly reviving interest in a sport that had struggled for relevance for decades. Yet, she was told she wasn't ready for the international stage. Fans were furious, accusing the selection committee of gatekeeping. But all eyes quickly turned to one person who seemed to be pulling the strings: head coach Reeve. Almost immediately, the internet went to work, and what they found wasn't pretty. The narrative shifted from basketball strategy to personal vendetta. Insiders and fans began speculating that the old guard of the league wasn't just skeptical of Clark. They were jealous of the attention she was getting. Rumors swirled that the decision to bench Clark was less about her defense or experience and more about sending a message that she hadn't paid her dues yet. Instead of embracing the new face of the game, it felt like leadership was trying to dim her light, and the coach was standing right at the center of that storm. The tension didn't start with the Olympic roster, though. It had been brewing for months before Clark even played a single professional minute. Reeve had made comments on social media that many interpreted as subtle digs at the rookie sensation. When the preseason hype was building, Reeve openly criticized the media's hyper-focus on one player, urging people to look at the whole league. While that sounds reasonable on paper, to the millions of new fans Clark brought in, it sounded like bitterness. It felt like the people in charge were resentful that the spotlight had shifted away from the veterans and onto a rookie from Iowa. Every time Reeve brushed off a question about Clark or rolled her eyes at the hype, it only convinced the public more that this was personal. One specific instance that fans point to is a social media post Reeve made regarding a preseason game, where she seemed to imply that the only reason people were watching was because of the opposing team, not just Clark. It was a small moment, but it set the tone for everything that followed. It created an us versus them mentality. On one side, you had the surging wave of new fans demanding to see the most exciting player in the world. On the other side, you had the establishment led by Reeve digging their heels in and insisting that their way was the only way. Then came the numbers, and they were impossible to ignore. While the WNBA was enjoying its most successful season in history thanks to the Clark effect, the Olympic TV ratings told a different story. The viewership for the gold medal game was decent, but it was a fraction of what it could have been. Analysts called it marketing suicide, pointing out that leaving the most famous female athlete on Earth at home was a financial disaster. NBC, the network broadcasting the Olympics, was reportedly furious behind the scenes. They had banked on the Clark phenomenon to drive historic ratings, and instead they got a standard turnout. The coach and the committee had gambled that basketball purity mattered more than the fans, and while they won the medal, they lost the public relations war. The narrative of basketball reasons started to crumble when people looked at the actual roster construction. The argument was that Clark lacked experience and physicality. Yet fans pointed out that Team USA struggled in areas where Clark excelled, specifically passing and spacing the floor. There were moments during the Olympics, particularly in the close game against France, where the offense looked stagnant. Social media lit up with comments saying, "You know who could fix this? Caitlin Clark." Every turnover and every missed shot by Team USA was scrutinized through the lens of that missing roster spot. The ghost of the player who wasn't there loomed larger than the players who were. Things got ugly when reporters started asking tough questions. Instead of cooling things down, the coach went on the offensive. During press conferences, the tension was palpable. She called reports about her dislike for Clark fiction and claimed she was taking bullets for the organization. It was a defiant stand, but it only made the noise louder. By positioning herself as the shield for the committee, she effectively made herself the face of the snub. Every interview became a battlefield with the coach defending her legacy, while fans flooded social media, demanding a change. The pressure was mounting, and it became clear that the toxicity surrounding the program was becoming a distraction that no gold medal could fix. It wasn't just the fans who were upset. There were whispers of discontent within the basketball world itself. While public support for the coach remained steady among the players, private conversations painted a different picture. Agents and marketing executives knew that the league blew a massive opportunity to globalize the women's game. The Olympics is the biggest stage in the world. Imagine the merchandise sales, the viral clips, and the international attention if Clark had been dropping logos from 30 feet in Paris. That opportunity was squandered. And in the world of professional sports, losing money is often a bigger sin than losing games. The Bullets comment is particularly revealing. When Reeve admitted she was taking the heat for the decision, she was acknowledging that the backlash was severe, but she also seemed to be playing the martyr, which didn't sit well with the public. It reinforced the idea that the establishment felt they knew better than the consumers. It was a classic case of a disconnect between the product and the audience. The audience wanted Clark. The product managers, the coach, and the committee refused to give it to them. In any other business, ignoring your customer base to that degree results in leadership changes. And that is exactly what we are seeing now. Throughout the WNBA season, the contrast between Team USA's rigid approach and the Indiana Fever's explosive popularity was stark. Every time the Fever played, it was an event. Away games were sold out. Jersey sales were through the roof. TV ratings for random Tuesday night games were beating NBA playoff numbers. Meanwhile, the conversation around Team USA was almost entirely negative. Even when they were winning by blowout margins in the early rounds of the Olympics, the comment sections were filled with, "Where is Caitlin?" It was a shadow they couldn't outrun. The joy of the gold medal run was sucked out of the room by the controversy. Then there was the rivalry aspect. The narrative that the veterans wanted to humble Clark played out in real time during the WNBA season. And Reeve was seen as the general of that old guard. The hard fouls, the face guarding, the intense physical play directed at Clark. Fans saw all of it as connected to the Olympic snub. It felt like a coordinated effort to break the rookie spirit. But instead of breaking, Clark got better. She started breaking records. She led the league in assists. She dropped triple-doubles. By the time the Olympics actually started, Clark had already proven that the experience argument was invalid. She was already one of the best players in the world, making the snub look even more ridiculous in hindsight. The game against France was the turning point for many observers. Team USA, a roster stacked with WNBA MVPs and All-Stars, barely scraped by against a French team that on paper shouldn't have been close. The Americans won by a single point, 67-6. It was too close for comfort. Critics argued that the lack of playmaking was evident. The offense became stagnant and reliant on isolation scoring. This was exactly the problem Clark solves. Her ability to create shots for others is generational. Watching Team USA struggle to generate easy offense while the best passer in the world sat at home was the final proof for many that the roster construction was flawed. They won, but they didn't dominate in the way they were supposed to. Following the Olympics, the silence was deafening. Usually a gold medal coach takes a victory lap. There are talk show appearances, glowing profiles, and discussions about the next cycle. For Reeve, there was mostly quiet. The victory felt hollow because the cloud of the controversy was still hovering. Then came the news that she would not be returning. While she framed it as her choice, saying she had done her time and was ready to move on, insiders believed the pressure was simply too high. USA basketball needed a reset. They needed to wash their hands of the controversy before the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. The timing of her departure aligns perfectly with the preparation for the next big cycle. The 2028 Olympics will be on home soil. It is effectively mandatory that Caitlin Clark be the face of that team. Having the same coach who snubbed her in 2024 lead the team in 2028 would be a public relations nightmare. It would be impossible to market the team effectively with that tension hanging over the locker room. By removing Reeve from the equation. Now, USA Basketball is clearing the deck. They are removing the villain of the story to make way for the hero's return. We also have to talk about the culture fit. Reeve is known for a very specific, hard-nosed, defensive-minded style of coaching. It's a style that has won championships, but it's also a style that clashes with the modern pace and space era that Clark represents. The clash wasn't just personal. It was philosophical. The old WNBA was about grit, physicality, and post-play. The new era, ushering in by Clark, is about range, speed, and spacing. Reeve's departure signals that USA Basketball knows they have to adapt to the modern game if they want to keep winning and, more importantly, if they want to keep people watching. Let's not forget the media's role in this. Major sports commentators like Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee hammered the decision for months. They called it stupid, idiotic, and jealousy. This mainstream attention brought a level of scrutiny to women's basketball coaching decisions that had never existed before. Reeve wasn't just answering to beat reporters anymore. She was being critiqued on ESPN during prime time. That level of heat burns people out. It makes the job miserable. It is very likely that Reeve looked at the landscape, looked at the headache that would come with trying to coach Clark in the future, and decided it simply wasn't worth it. The resignation serves as a vindication for the fans. For months, they were told they didn't understand basketball. They were told to sit down and be quiet, that the experts knew better. But in the end, the experts had to fold. The market spoke louder than the accolades. The fans made it clear that they would not support a team that actively alienated its biggest star. This is a massive shift in the power dynamic of sports. It shows that in the digital age, the audience has a seat at the table. You cannot dictate to the fans anymore. You have to collaborate with them. There is also the element of player relation. While Team USA players publicly supported the coach, the locker room dynamic had to be strange. These players are smart. They know where the money comes from. They know that Clark's popularity is raising all of their salaries, the charter flights, the bigger endorsements, the sold-out arenas. That's the Clark effect. Deep down, many of them likely understood that alienating the source of that growth was a bad business move. Reeve becoming the antagonist in the Clark movie was bad for the entire league's brand. So what happens next? With Reeve out, the search for a new coach begins, and the criteria will undoubtedly include one unwritten rule. You must be able to work with Caitlin Clark. The next coach will likely be someone who embraces the modern offense, someone who understands the marketing side of the game, and someone who can manage the massive circus that comes with having a superstar of Clark's magnitude. The 2028 team will look very different. It will be Clark's team. The offense will run through her, and the coach will be someone who is happy to hand her the keys. This entire saga is a lesson in ego versus reality. Cheryl Reeve is a legendary coach with a trophy case full of rings. No one can take that away from her, but she allowed her ego, or perhaps her rigid adherence to tradition, to blind her to the reality of the moment. She tried to treat Caitlin Clark like just another rookie, failing to realize that Clark was a movement. You can't bench a movement. You can't humble a tidal wave. By trying to stand in front of it, Reeve got washed away. The fallout from this will ripple through the league for years. It has exposed the deep divide between the WNBA's past and its future. The resignation is the white flag from the old guard. It's an admission that the resistance is futile. The gatekeepers have lost the keys. The sport belongs to the new generation now, and any leader who refuses to accept that will meet the same fate as the coach of Team USA. As we look toward the future, the integration of Clark into the senior national team is now inevitable. The snub will become part of her lore, the chip on her shoulder that fueled her rise. Just like Michael Jordan being cut from his high school varsity team, a myth, but a powerful one, Clark being left off the 2024 Olympic team will be the story we tell to explain her drive. And Cheryl Reeve will be the antagonist in that story, the coach who didn't believe the obstacle that had to be removed. In the end, Team USA got their gold medal, but they left a lot of goodwill on the table. The departure of the coach signals a changing of the guard, a realization that you cannot fight the future of the sport. Caitlin Clark is only going to get bigger, and the next leadership group will almost certainly build the team around her. It's a harsh lesson in modern sports. Talent wins games, but superstars build empires, and ignoring that reality is a fireable offense. The coach thought she could win the battle against the Clark stands and the media hype, but she lost the war. The fans won. Caitlin Clark won. And now Team USA has a clean slate to finally give the people what they want. Following the Olympics, the silence was deafening. Usually, a gold medal coach takes a victory lap. There are talk show appearances, glowing profiles, and discussions about the next cycle. For Reeve, there was mostly quiet. The victory felt hollow because the cloud of the controversy was still hovering. Then came the news that she would not be returning. While she framed it as her choice, saying she had done her time and was ready to move on, insiders believed the pressure was simply too high. USA basketball needed a reset. They needed to wash their hands of the controversy before the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. The timing of her departure aligns perfectly with the preparation for the next big cycle. The 2028 Olympics will be on home soil. It is effectively mandatory that Caitlin Clark be the face of that team. Having the same coach who snubbed her in 2024 lead the team in 2028 would be a public relations nightmare. It would be impossible to market the team effectively with that tension hanging over the locker room. By removing Reeve from the equation now, USA basketball is clearing the deck. They are removing the villain of the story to make way for the hero's return. We also have to talk about the culture fit. Reeve is known for a very specific, hard-nosed, defensive-minded style of coaching. It's a style that has won championships, but it's also a style that clashes with the modern pace and space era that Clark represents. The clash wasn't just personal. It was philosophical. The old WNBA was about grit, physicality, and post-play. The new era, ushering in by Clark, is about range, speed, and spacing. Reeve's departure signals that USA basketball knows they have to adapt to the modern game if they want to keep winning and, more importantly, if they want to keep people watching. Let's not forget the media's role in this. Major sports commentators like Stephen A. Smith and Pat McAfee hammered the decision for months. They called it stupid, idiotic, and jealousy. This mainstream attention brought a level of scrut. Visual art and design.